We're going to be talking a little bit about a Buddhist subject, a Buddhist principle dealing with spirituality, and that is the 10 fetters. Last time I was on Insight Timer, not last week, but the week before, we were talking about the 10 fetters, and I kind of promised that we'd finish that up. It's a very important subject because it's the we talked about the 10 fetters, and as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, the 10 fetters are the Buddhist teaching on what we need to do to become enlightened individuals. So I feel it's a very, very important teaching. Needless to say, we don't always use the word enlightened. We don't always say I want to become enlightened. Although I think secretly that's what we all want, whatever our ideal or our definition of that might be, that's what we want, some kind of an awakening. And we are probably under the impression that once we become awake or enlightened, that we will not have any more suffering, that things will be okay and everything will be all right. And to a certain extent, that is absolutely true. It's not that anything out there is going to change; it's how our perception of it. And for the most part, when the Buddha talked about enlightenment, he talked about these stages, and really the enlightenment that we might be familiar with in Buddhism is what we would call nibbāna, or really the full enlightenment, the type of enlightenment that the Buddha had, where he said, "I'm not going to be reborn again." And that's really the key. That when we say that we're not going to be reborn, that has everything to do with these 10 fetters. These fetters are the things that fetter us and tie us, bind us to this world that we live in. And it's a little bit more complicated than that, because it's not just this lifetime that we're talking about. We're talking about being reborn into this world again and again and again and again. And until we really understand that and really know that concept in the depths of our hearts, it can be a little bit difficult for people. So anytime that anybody is aware enough to recognize some of the signals of something like an event that might have happened in a previous life, it's a real gift for us. Like a past life regression, or maybe some kind of a dream analogy or something like that. And a lot of it is just being open to these signals that come up. Why are we attracted to a certain kind of food? Why are we attracted to a certain type of person? Why does a certain sound, is it pleasing for us? Why are we afraid of a certain type of person, or a certain a certain race or a certain thing, And a lot of these are really hidden signs of something that has happened perhaps in a previous life. And so if we can be open to that, it really does pay dividends. It really does help, especially when we look at these fetters. Now, 2 weeks ago, again, I wasn't here last week, but 2 weeks ago, I mentioned that I was going to do a whiteboard. And the problem that I thought I was having is that now when I look at this, I'm gonna zoom this camera out a little bit here. When I look at this, it's backwards on my screen. So somebody has to help me out there, because I was told that it is not backwards, that you can read it fine from your standpoint. Okay, Terry says it's not backwards. Thank you. Because I'm looking at it and it's completely backwards. I don't know why. I'm not going to try to figure it out tonight, maybe tomorrow or something, but to me it's coming in, like a mirror image. So it's probably my monitor or something. I'm not sure why it would do that on mine and not on yours. So the main thing is that it's looking all right. So this is a list of the 10 fetters. I wonder if I can pull this out just a little bit more. Okay. This is a list of the 10 fetters. And the identity view, the one on top here, number 1, also called non-self, or we talked about it in relation to what we might call the soul. And we looked at the dangers of looking at our mind and body as a soul, what we call the aggregates in Buddhism. But the danger of that is that we feel that somehow we don't have to do the work while we're here on this earth, that we will somehow be saved. Somebody's going to come down and take care of us and take us up to heaven after we die. And many people look at the soul as a little likeness of us, and something that will kind of be rescued, and that not much will change. We'll remember everything, but we'll be taken to a very pleasant place. That our soul and everything, like all of this stuff, will be intact, and will be somebody will come down and or we'll go up, and we'll be all taken care of. So again, and this isn't everybody's view. This is many people's view, where they feel like, que sera, sera, I don't have to do the work. I'll be okay. And some people feel as if there's nihilism, where they are born from nothing and then they go back into nothing as well. And there's a danger in that too, because we oftentimes we lay down our spiritual practice because of that belief. And the Buddha said that the other danger of this wrong view, and I mentioned that the Buddha was born a Hindu, and in the Hindu tradition, they certainly do believe in a self-awareness, and that type of thing. And in Buddhism, there is no self. That doesn't mean that a Buddha or a person can't, practice Buddhism if they have difficulty in believing that there is no self or no soul. But what it does point to is that the Buddha is saying that any time that we lay an I or me or my upon something, that we will suffer. And to kind of summarize, like I said, I talked about this pretty in depth a couple weeks ago, but to summarize from Buddha, from Bhante Gudarantana's book, 8 Mindful Steps to Happiness here. He mentioned, there's a pretty good line that he mentioned. He said, when mindfulness leads you to realize that the self you have been protecting so vigorously is in fact an illusion, a stream of constantly changing sensations, emotions, and physical states with no permanence and no fixed identity, then there will be no you to attach to the impermanent things of this world, and thus no reason for you to be dissatisfied or unhappy. So the bottom line is, if there is no you, there's no suffering. If there's no self, there is no suffering. There's no one to suffer. And that's kind of the premise behind that teaching. And we can all understand that from the standpoint of sometimes we are just so happy and just so in tune with life that we kind of make a commitment that no matter what happens, I am not going to be taken out of this state. a bolt of lightning can come down. I don't care. I'm going to enjoy what I have. I don't know. I hope everybody has experienced that, but it's like, nothing can get in your way of this happiness, but it's not because that it's your happiness. It's because there's at least a temporary emergence with all of life, that you're connected with everything, at least for a moment. There are individuals that can really sustain this, and some people say that they live in this all the time, that this oneness. But this oneness is what the Buddha is referring to. And it's very important, but that is the very first fetter. And once a person realizes that, or gets a taste of it, it's very much like dipping your toe into the stream of spirituality, and letting, and actually sometimes getting in that stream and letting it take you, and perhaps, hopefully, take you all the way. And that is actually what the Buddha called a stream enterer, is when we start realizing this identity view, that there is no I, there's no me, there's no my, that it's all a connection. And then I also talked about number 2, the second fetter, a little bit, I believe a couple weeks ago, and that there's skeptical doubt. And skeptical doubt is very much related to the bottom, the number 10 here, down here, which is ignorance. And skeptical doubt is a type of ignorance, but it's also a type of lack of faith. And this is kind of what I'm referring to when I said that if we have an open mind about perhaps past lives, future lives, that type of thing, and then we can, it really helps in the understanding of this. I always say that doubt can derail a freight train, and it can. We have to have faith in our practice, otherwise, it's very difficult. And everybody here has at least some degree of faith. They don't have this skeptical doubt as much as a lot of people would. Otherwise, you would not be here on Insight Timer listening to this right now. So we're in the game already, right? The third area is rites and rituals, and I did touch on that a couple weeks ago too, I believe, but that's the belief, again, that, remember, the Buddha was brought up Hindu, born and raised, but in the Hindu tradition there's a lot of rites and rituals, and he really believed that those rites and rituals were not going to save anybody. In fact, he didn't believe in statues, although, we see an incredible, I don't know how many Buddha statues I have in this room. There's one right behind me here. But he didn't believe in statues, and somebody did make a carving of him when he was alive, a Buddha statue of him, and he ordered them to burn it. He didn't want any kind of rites and rituals to be a part of his teachings. And of course, much of that has changed after his passing. But he really, particularly types of animal sacrifices and things like that were just overboard, what I would call overboard. That's what he was inviting people to stay away from. Now, number 4, sensual desire. This sensual desire is one of the false happinesses that we all encounter every day, and sometimes moment by moment by moment. So when we see something or hear something or smell or taste or feel something, or even in many cases think of something, when these senses come into contact with something out in the world, we have to remember that all of these things are impermanent, so they're not going to provide lasting happiness, because they're all in flux, they're all changing, they're all impermanent. So we cannot find permanent or lasting happiness in an impermanent world or anything connected to the world. So that is really the lowest. The Buddha said that's the lowest form of happiness that we can find is sensual desire. It can be considered greed. It could be a part of addiction, actually. But he did say, and there's different levels of happiness, and the highest level is the spiritual happiness that we find from spiritual practice. And meditation is a very good example of that, which we will do here after a little bit, after we discuss some of this. And so that takes us to number 5 here. And remember that as we tackle these, we become more spiritually awake. And the whole idea is to go through these and to unbind us from these fetters so that there is no more rebirth into this samsaric world, into this world that we live in. Now, number 5, ill will or hatred, anger, these types of things. Ill will is usually or oftentimes considered anger at ourselves. And hatred is, of course, we all know what hatred is. It could be at another person. It could be angry at a thing or at a situation, at the world at large, or somebody that we don't even know we can be angry or feel like we even hate. At least we often find ourselves using these words, and we should be very careful of that. But the state of anger is all of these things, particularly the ill will. If we feel, actually, we might as well tie it in with these other two, the 5, 6, and 7, and think of these as very, very subtle ideas within the mind that are so subtle that if we think them, that they will bring us back to a rebirth. So let's say that we're at the end of this lifetime. We're on our deathbed, and chances are we will die in a bed in a hospital. I think the chances are almost 75%, I think I heard, that we will die in a bed in a hospital, or at least in a bed anyway. And let's say we're laying there and we wish that let's take a look at number 6 here. We wish that we could have a rebirth, a nicer rebirth in this world, in this material world, like a rebirth in Scottsdale, Arizona, or someplace, Sedona or something, something that we really like. And so that wish for a rebirth is enough intention for us to actually have this rebirth and come back. It might not be where we want to, but it is enough for us to come back. In the same way for number 7, birth in a formless realm, or like a heavenly realm, we could call it. So if we wish to be reborn or to have another existence in a heaven or in a realm that's higher than this earthly realm, that is, again, enough intention, mental intention, for us to actually, for that to take hold from a karmic perspective. And we'll back up here to ill will and hatred. If we feel as if that our mind and body can conjure up this sensation or this state of hatred towards somebody, what we're doing is creating another ego, another I, or another soul that is able to do that. And so this hatred can be very, very, very subtle. So we have to, all of these things can be very subtle, actually. So we have to be very, very careful. If there's anything in this world that we do not like, we're trying to push away, we're struggling against, that can be cause for a rebirth. Basically, we have to have a great deal of acceptance. It's not that we are trying to please everyone and everything and trying to, say something like, somebody's beating you and say, yes sir, please give me another, that type of thing. That's not what I'm talking about at all, but I'm talking about the very subtle mind, the states that come up perhaps in meditation, or when we're very relaxed and we can be very, very aware of what's coming up in the mind. Number 8, we're looking at conceit, and this is very, very subtle as well. Actually, the rest of these are very subtle. Conceit is our idea that there is still a little bit of importance left within the mind and body of the 5 aggregates, or of who we are. It is so subtle. I like to use the example of somebody that is eating something, and there's only a few people in the household. They're eating, let's say, a bowl of soup, and they notice that there's a hair in the soup, and they realize that it's a human hair, and they feel kind of grossed out, because there's a hair in there. How disgusting. And then they realize that it's one of their hairs, because they're the only one in that household with that color of hair. And then they go, oh, it's mine, it's my hair, it's not a problem. So they remove it from the soup and they continue eating it. And so that is a very, very subtle form of conceit, where we feel, without even realizing it, that we are different, we're special, we're above somebody else. And there are, I could go into many different examples of that, but try to keep that one example in mind, the soup example, or the eating example with the hair, and how we feel when we find a hair. But if it was our hair, it would be a completely different story. Very, very subtle conceit. And now, number 9 is restlessness, and we could also add worry to that. And that is the mind going round and round and round, not being able to settle down, not being able to do our spiritual practice. But on a more subtle basis, if we are, again, at our deathbed, we're on our verge of dying, the end of this life as we feel it is, and the mind is so restless that we can't settle down. We feel as if we're going to miss this body, or miss some aspect of this life, miss some people in this life, that type of thing, that we can almost be certain that we would have a rebirth, just because of that intention, that inclination, that we are restless in the mind. We can't settle the mind down, and the mind, which means that the mind is going out. It's still going out into the world, not necessarily in a greedy way or in a desirous way, but it's just going out and connecting with things as if it's kind of still shopping in a certain way. Number 10, ignorance. Ignorance, I related that to skeptical doubt, because the ignorance that we are talking about here is the ignorance of not understanding, first of all, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, but also understand the ignorance of understanding that we have had past lives, and all of these things can be very, very, very valuable teachings for us. If we, as I mentioned a little while ago, if we have been fortunate enough to have a past life regression, or to understand some aspect of maybe how we lived in a previous time, maybe not necessarily this past life, but maybe a life before that or something like that, to get a taste of that, maybe through our dreams, through meditation, through regression work, just to pick up the very subtle cues that there has been something other than this life itself. What this does is propels us into our spiritual world, into our spiritual life, with the understanding that we are very, very fortunate to be humans right now. We're very fortunate because we can make a decision. We can practice our spirituality. If a person would wish for existence in a heavenly realm or a God realm or something like that, and we were, let's say, it doesn't work this way, but if we were granted that wish, the danger of that, we could imagine that we become very complacent and we don't do any spiritual work. We're in this heavenly realm, everything is good, we're up there for eons and eons, and we're not making any progress. That is one of the reasons why at this time in our life, of the many lives that we've had, the opportunity to be human and what we have right now is a huge, huge gift, because we can practice our spirituality, starting with meditation, our formal practice on the cushion, and then our practice off of the cushion, what we might call mindfulness, or many different ways. Even if we're reading a self-help book or something to benefit ourselves, something to benefit others spiritually, we're doing our work. We're doing what we're really meant to be doing. It, our purpose on this earth, and so it's very important to keep that in mind. And if we don't, we are wasting a precious life. We're really wasting this precious human life, and that is the ignorance that the Buddha was talking about. So again, once we break free from these 10 fetters, this is exactly what the Buddha had to do to become enlightened himself. He broke through these, and one of the gifts that he had is that he did recognize many, many of his past lives. I think 700 of them, actually, if I remember that number. And he used those for a lot of his teachings, his experiences of his past lives, because with a past life, usually we understand the last few days or last few hours of our past life, and we understand how we died. And in that is a huge lesson, lesson for us, and a lesson that we can convey to other people. And that's exactly what the Buddha did. And he used those past lives for teachings, and he used them for his own advancement. A couple of things. Now, these teachings, in many situations are very, very basic. The 10 fetters is a part of, the very first teaching the Buddha did was the Four Noble Truths, and within the Four Noble Truths was the Eightfold Path. And then this teaching itself, the 10 fetters, is within the Eightfold Path in the area of skillful effort. Skillful effort meaning that we have to work a little bit to get to where we want to get, if we want to wake up, if we want to become enlightened. And whether we realize it or not, that is why we're here. We're here to do that work. And so we really owe it to ourselves, to do this. Within this, there's one more thing I wanted to mention. Within the Theravada teaching, which this comes from, Theravada teachings are the direct teachings that the Buddha gave that were translated from Ananda, his assistant. The Theravada tradition is also translated as the teachings of the elders. And so it's the old teachings of Buddhism, the teachings that came out during his life, and then that immediately after he died, they were written down. And in the Mahayana tradition of Buddhism, there is the aspect of the Bodhisattva. And the Bodhisattva, as many of you know, like the Dalai Lama, the Bodhisattva takes a vow to come back, to to leave this life and to be reborn and come back as another human to help other humans. And so the idea is to kind of get everybody together on the same ship and then take off at the same time. Not exactly like that, but that the idea is to not to be selfish. A bodhisattva is supposedly not a selfish person whatsoever. They make the intention to come back after this death in this lifetime to help people, like the Dalai Lama. So many of this, like rebirth, the areas of 6 and 7, the rebirth in a material realm or rebirth in a formless realm. As I mentioned, we have a cat here. Sorry about that. As mentioned, it's all about intention. If we had the intention to come back like a bodhisattva, that is exactly what would happen. And so that's how powerful this is. It's very, very, very subtle, but it has everything to do with intention, and that is karma in a nutshell. Karma is intention. A lot of people say, well, I accidentally I was driving down the street and I accidentally killed a bird, or a bird ran into my car. I feel horrible. And when people tell me that, and they do, they actually do tell me these things, I'll ask them what their intention was. Were you intending on killing this animal, this bird? And they say, no, of course not. And I remind them that intention is everything. If we have an intention to harm, that is a lot different than accidentally harming somebody. If we have an intention to harm ourselves, that's different than stumbling on the street and hurting ourselves. So everything has to do with intention, and all of these 10 fetters have everything to do with intention as well. So if you didn't get a chance to write these down, if you go to, I don't often promote the internet, but you'll be able to find these on the internet. And there's any if you just write in type in the 10 fetters of Buddhism, these will come up, and they might have different labels, different names. The first one, identity view, might be called non-self. It might be called anatta, which is the Pali word for non-self. It might call it no soul or something like that. So, but you can find it all online. Let's see. Without further ado, if there's any questions, you can send them my way. What I'm going to do now, I'd like to do a meditation, and during this meditation, I'll guide you through some of the aspects of these. And what I mean by these, I'll guide you through some of the aspects of the 10 fetters and some things that you can keep in mind. And I'll try to still incorporate as much silence within the meditation as I possibly can. So, first of all, I'd like to say I hope going through these 10 fetters has been beneficial for you. Very few traditions actually lay out a path or a means for one to really accomplish what they have set out to accomplish. And what I mean by that is a lot of people are brought to Buddhism and meditation, through the Buddhist practices, and they're brought to the Buddhism and the practices of Buddhism because they want to wake up. They want they want something different in life, and they want to really be able to see clear, what life is all about, what it has to offer for them, and what might be in store for them after life as well. I think most of us really feel that life is a mystery, and particularly death as being a mystery. And when we think in terms of this is not the only life we've had many, many past lives with the only situation is that there's a veil of forgetfulness that comes up over us for the most part, but it doesn't actually cover up everything. Many of those experiences that we've had, they can show themselves. And in many situations, we have to trust ourselves. When we get an inkling or instinct, some kind of intuitive response to something that has happened, and we feel as if it's like, the old deja vu kind of thing, we want to really consider that and really take a look at that. I'm not trying to sell anything, and I'm not trying to sell the idea that we've had past lives, but it does really, really help to understand that this is not the only existence that we've had, and it's not the only existence that we will have. And even if we don't make it through all 10 of these fetters, I'm looking at them right now, if we don't make it through all of them, the Buddha said that if we understand the first 3, that we will have, chances are that we would have one rebirth in this worldly realm. And if we understand all of them, that we could become fully enlightened and have no rebirths at all. And there's lots of things in between. We could have rebirths in, not in this worldly realm, but in other realms as well. But the idea is to keep working at them, keep at it, and have fun, love ourselves while we do it, and love others, and just work with it. So let's make ourselves comfortable, and I'd like to guide you through a meditation based on this information. Gently close your eyes if you like. And please bring your attention to the body and ask yourself, how does the body feel at this moment? Notice your breathing, gently breathing in, gently breathing out. We're not changing the breath, we're not manipulating the breath. We're simply noticing. Notice how the body feels at this moment. Allow your attention to do a body scan. You can remain focused on the breath and still bring your attention to the shoulders, the arms, the torso, the lower back and the abdomen. Notice the hips, how they feel. Notice how the legs feel. See if you can relax everything. Give yourself a break. We're focusing on the breath. We're focusing on the body. But I think you can understand when I say that this isn't you. You are not the breath, you're not the body. We often feel as if we have ownership on these things, but we really don't have any difficulty realizing that there is very, very little control. Control over the body, the functions of the body. We don't have to control the breath. We don't have to focus on the breath for our life. It happens on its own. We can focus on the mechanics of the breath and any other area of the body. But we really don't have full control. And that's okay. Because without control, we have nothing to hang on to. One of the first things that we can learn to let go of is that idea of control. And once we feel that we can do that, we notice there's a great amount of freedom and ease in life. Because we're not relying so much on the self. We're not relying on the I, the me. To control and to accomplish and to make sure that the body is doing what the body is supposed to be doing. And we can experiment with this right now. Just relax the body. Don't force anything. Just maintain a semi-erect posture, something that's comfortable. No manipulation of the breath or any aspect of the body. Just resting in this moment. Set aside any control of the time or what might be coming up next for us. Not concerned about the past or the future. Resting in the present moment. And in this present moment, we can notice that there is no doubt. Because we can go within and find that spiritual fulfillment. We don't need anything in the outer world to make our situation better at this moment. We can set aside the past, set aside the future. We can even set aside the body and rest in this presence. We don't need any particular rites or rituals for this spirituality to happen, for our ability to go within to happen. We're set aside, allowing all sensual desire to dissipate. And let it fall into the background. Not wishing for anything to be any different than what it currently is. Nothing need to be changed or manipulated in any way for things to be perfect just the way they are. When this happens, any kind of hatred or ill will cannot be found. Nothing that is a part of our lives. And there's no wish for a rebirth in a worldly realm or a non-worldly realm. So we're sitting in this presence, in this moment, without creating any karma. The mind is settled down. There's no I, me, or my to have to protect or hold on to or guard. There's no restlessness within the mind. And as we sit in meditation, we can feel absolutely complete. Again, not needing anything to change in any way for this moment to be exactly as it should be. If your attention isn't on the breath at this moment, please bring it to the breath. Again, no control, no manipulation, just notice the breath. Find some point, some spot in the body where you feel the breath the most, and just focus on that. Use your concentration to become very present in this moment. And feel the aliveness within the practice. few more mindful breaths. And take a moment to ask yourself if you have experienced presence in this moment. That sweet spot between the past and the future. Just simply noticing the mind rather than grasping or clinging on to anything that comes through the mind. It's like passing clouds, thoughts, moving on. I invite you to take a little deeper than normal inhalation as we slowly come to the end of this meditation. Gently exhale, and another little deeper than normal inhalation of the breath. And why don't we do this one more time? Little exhalation and one more deeper than normal inhalation. Bring yourself back to your room. And if you feel like it, you can open your eyes. And I hope this was a good meditation for you. It was I believe it was 20 minutes. I'm sure it's short for many of you. I do believe it's important to cover the material that we did cover. I hope it was beneficial for you. If there's any questions about any of that, you could type it up right now, and I'll see if I can help with any questions. People are pretty quiet tonight. Thank you for the donation, Lyle. I appreciate that. You're one of the very consistent people in the bunch here. I appreciate that, the consistency. And from my understanding, you're very consistent in your practice too. So, thank you. Next week, I want to remind everybody I did miss last week. I didn't get signed up in time through Insight Timer. But next week I will genuinely be out of town in an area where the Wi-Fi isn't good enough to broadcast this kind of thing. So I just want to let everybody know ahead of time that I won't be here next week. After that, I think it's the 5th of October. I'm looking at being here every Wednesday night again. And if you're local, there is a program starting up that you might want to check out. You can go to one of the websites, myname.org, and you'll get information on that. It's a live program, so you have to be local in the Phoenix, Arizona area. And see if there's anything else from anybody. I don't see anything, but I really, really do want to appreciate everybody. I say that I appreciate you, and yeah, thank you, Kathy. And it really means a lot to me to have people, contact and come in into Insight Timer and use this app, and this use these broadcasts, these live broadcasts, the way you are using them. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful way to help, get the word out there as far as meditation and heaven knows we really need it. We need the practice. We really need the spiritual oomph, I guess we could call it. Thank you, Alice. I'm glad you liked it. Stressful day, yeah. There's a lot of the equinox has really produced a lot of different things for a lot of different people, and there's some things happening out there. You hear about solar flares, and there's a lot of people have a lot of questions about what's to come, in the next few days. And all I can say is stay with your practice, and be strong. We as a world, we are going through a lot of things. People are telling me some really wild things, as far as what asking for help in different ways and things like that. And I'm always trying to be here for people. A lot of it is just being strong and being aware, and not giving up. And what I mean by not giving up is being consistent with your practice, and not only meditation, but being mindful and really watching every little emotion, every little state that comes up, and ask yourself, why is it there? And reviewing our actions, reviewing our emotions, our states, our feelings as they come up. And what I mean by reviewing is there's a practice where we can sit and review our last 24 hours, see if there's anything that we have to let go of. Do we have to let go of any animosity, anything that we did to somebody, or anything that we feel other people did to us, to be able to let that go? And then in the same sitting, review our next 24 hours and see what we want to do with that time. That's not necessarily a replacement for like a good Vipassana meditation practice, but it is a type of spiritual practice that is very beneficial, something that I do every day. If you want more information about that, you can go to the same website that I mentioned and click on More, and then you'll see Recall and Create, and that's Recall and Create practice. That's at myname.org. That is the website. So, okay, I'm going to close it up now. I want to thank everybody again. Love you all. I won't see you next week, but I'll promise I'll see you the week after that on October 5th. Okay? So everybody, take care of yourselves, and we'll connect in 2 weeks. Thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye.